Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Outdoor Adventures podcast on Brownfield. I'm Brent Barnett. Today's show is brought to you by Beck's Hybrids. At Beck's, we are and will remain farmers at heart. On this week's program, we're joined by Sean McVeigh from Sean's Outdoor Adventures online. Sean, thanks for being here. How are you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to get to talk to you today.
Excited to get to learn more about you. I've been following your channel for several years now on YouTube. You put out some really great hunting content and some how-to content for people that are interested in hunting in the outdoors. How did you get started with Sean's Outdoor Adventures? Can you tell us the story of your background?
Sure. I'm 50 years old, to give you a perspective on that. So back in 1992, I saw my first hunting video on a VHS tape. And I was really passionate about archery and bow hunting just from early on. My dad gave me my first bow when I was 4 years old, and I was just hooked. And, when I saw that hunting video, I was like, oh man, that is me. I want to do that for my living. So like as a teenager, I wanted to be a professional hunter. And then I bought a video camera with, some money I'd saved up, and I started filming hunts in 1995. So I've been doing it a long time. And I never knew exactly how it was going to happen or work out. But then, years passed, and this platform called YouTube started, and friends of mine were like, hey, dude, you got to put your videos on YouTube. And I was like, no, okay. So I uploaded a couple of videos to YouTube, and this is probably in 2010 at this point. And, some of them were really taking off, and I didn't expect that at all. And suddenly I had several thousand subscribers, and I was, maybe a couple years went by, and I was like, maybe I should take this a little more seriously, And so I started to upload more videos like on YouTube. And that was kind of my starting point as far as a place to present some hunting footage that I had captured. And then, fast forward a few years, I was at 40,000 subscribers, and I was like, wow, this is great. And then it kept climbing, and I was like, I was living in Pennsylvania, grew up in Pennsylvania, and some of the areas where I hunted it was tough. You'd see one deer a week. It was just not a lot of deer, and really difficult mountains to hunt. And I was like, man. I was like kind of saying a prayer to God one day. I was like, if there's one place that I would want to live to make videos, it'd be Iowa, and didn't necessarily know that it would turn into anything. But within about 6 months, it was like, boom, we were relocated to Iowa. It just, I couldn't believe it. So it was almost like God just directly answering that little monologue I was having. And so not long after I moved to Iowa, though, we had the whole COVID thing, and YouTube, they started to really change their platform, and they also started to make it probably in about 2018, 2016, no, maybe more like 2016. They started to really crack down on like hunting content. They didn't want blood on there. They were demonetizing hunting channels and stuff. I was like, oof. But I was still growing quite a bit. And I was at 100,000 subscribers at this point, right around when I moved to Iowa. And when COVID happened, I don't know what changed or what they did, but like my channel just stopped growing. I had like 110,000 subscribers, and this is in 2020. And I'm still sitting at like 112. And it's like as fast as I gain subscribers, they just take subscribers off my channel. Now, you mentioned in the comment, like you're like, hey, Sean, I've been following your videos. I don't know what's happening. I just keep getting unsubscribed from your channel, and I'm having trouble finding it. I've had thousands of people write to me saying the same exact thing. I have no idea. Some people say it's called shadow banning, where they don't tell you, but they really try to, discontinue a channel more or less. And so I have the quote silver button from YouTube. So I think that they are not taking me below 100, but for whatever reason, and I don't understand it. That's going on. And it's like, if I showed you the analytics to the life of my channel, like hunting season starting in August, my subscriber rate would go through the roof. Just boom. Like I would have, let's say 600 subscribers a month throughout the year. And then hunting season would hit, and it would go up to like 3, 4, 5,000 new subscribers a month. Right now, every time I upload a video, I lose subscribers every time. And right now my monthly gain of subscribers is like 92, where it used to be like 5,000. So, I just started recently, actually the last few weeks, branching out and uploading to new platforms, like TikTok. I started a TikTok account. I got like 17 followers there. Woohoo. I got Sean's Outdoor Adventures Facebook page that's got like 3,500, followers to that. So I just was like, I'm just going to start throwing content in other areas. YouTube was a great starting point, but clearly I don't know what they're doing, like the powers that be in that platform, but I don't think they like me or like hunting. So, well, I also mention God quite a bit, and those are two things that I've heard they don't like. They don't like hunting and they don't like God, so they they get rid of channels that really promote those things or something. I've been told. I don't know.
Well, I feel bad you're dealing with those challenges. Hopefully, you get some traction on some of those other platforms you were mentioning, because you do put out great content, Sean. I was thinking of one of the early videos I think I saw you put out. You had a really cool how-to side-by-side showing how long it takes you to set up a climber stand and like a regular, hang-on tree stand. That type of stuff's really fascinating.
Yeah, so I picked a single tree and I went up about 30 feet and I tied a strap in that tree. And then I used all these different, I think it was 4 different tree stand methods for climbing up and getting set up. And so I climbed up, touched that strap and timed it. And I put them all right next to each other in the video. And it's funny because just recently I had a video pop up in my feed where the thumbnail was like, it almost looked like exactly like the way I did that video, but it was somebody else's. So I watched it. I'm like, this person watched my video clearly. And he's like, oh yeah, I forgot that I watched your video. And so anyway, someone else was making a video based off of that exact one you're talking about. So it's kind of funny, but yeah, it was a fun video to make.
You also put out hunting content, like some of your hunts you go on throughout the year. Yeah. You had a fantastic season last year. Kind of walk us through some of your success you had. Okay.
So last year, I live in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and we have an urban zone hunt. So if you get 5 doe one season, you can qualify for a bonus buck tag the following season. So I had qualified for that, and I had that in my pocket. I also I have some. I do a lot of public land hunting, but I also have some private land. And I had this one private land spot that's on 5 acres. It's just a small chunk of land outside of town, like in farm country. And there's usually some decent bucks that are living there, but they've always just skirted me, just out of range. So one of the things I did last summer, probably in August, is I just took a piece of jute rope about 1/4 inch, maybe 1/2 inch in diameter, and I just made a scrape with it. I hung it over. I hung it from a branch about 15 yards in front of my stand location. And I just dug out, just used my boot and kicked out all those waist-high weeds. And I made this big dirt patch on the ground, and I just left it alone. And then I went back. I didn't even go to that spot until the first week in November, I think it was. And so I just stayed away from it and got up in the tree. The wind was right. And that morning, I had deer around me. I had a 9, I think it was about a 9 or 11 pointer. He was a mainframe 8, I think, with extra sticker points in different locations. And I debated when he went by. I was like, should I shoot? I'm like, and it was like a voice inside me was saying, you can do better. And then, I heard some like squirrels and chipmunks going crazy behind me. And I've experienced them do that when bucks are making rubs. So I'm like, I think there's a buck over there making a rub, but it was too thick. And so I just kind of was sitting there. And then next thing I know, like maybe 10 minutes later, I looked down, and in the scrape was this shooter buck, probably a 6.5-year-old deer. If you're watching this video, it's over my shoulder here, this 10-pointer right here. But yeah, he was a good buck. And I quick shot him, and so that was a great start. The point that the whole story is, I set it up in August and I stayed out of there. I did not go. I didn't even step foot in there. I threw up a cellular camera that, I got some pictures on, but I knew it almost doesn't matter because come the rut, you never know who's going to show up. And so that was success. Number one was set up the spot, stay away from it, and only hunt it when it's ready, when the situations are perfect, which that day was. The urban zone hunt that I had, I passed on a lot of bucks throughout the season, and then I had a buck on camera, like near one of my spots, that looked like there was something wrong with it. He looked really skinny, and so I ended up shooting that buck. He's a nice 10-pointer. This was a spot I hunted very sparingly. So that's another key component for my success is I try to only hunt spots when it's right, and I hunt them sparingly. Sometimes I'll go weeks without stepping foot on a spot just to keep it, good and pristine. So the deer, I don't want the deer to feel pressured at all, at least not from me, whatever I can control. So I would go into this spot, sparingly, and I was encountering smaller bucks, and it was getting along in the season. And then this nice 10-pointer came out. I was like, well, I mean, he's a decent buck. He probably high 140s. And I was going to hold out to see if I get something a little bit bigger, but I was like, I'll take him, So I took that buck, and he had holes, I think from fighting, from antlers going through his cheek. And it was all like infected with pus. And he just was probably struggling to eat, which is why he looked so thin. He was probably starving. And so I'm always happy to take out a buck or a deer that's injured. So I was actually kind of happy on that regard, is like, I like to leave the healthy ones and take out the ones that are, injured if it's ever possible. And then I also bought a little property not far from where we live, and I wanted something closer to home to hunt. And so we settled on the property in the middle of October or I forget, maybe it was early November. No, I put the offer in early October, settled in November. And I went over and hunted it one day, and I shot, I ran cameras as soon as I put the offer in, and they let me. And I would say I had plenty of basket 8-pointers, like 2.5-year-olds on the property, but once in a blue moon, I would get maybe a 4.5-year-old 9-point on camera. But there really wasn't much in maturity in that area. I've talked to some of the neighbors. There's a lot of brown it's down kind of people, so they just shoot everything, and it's harder for the deer to hit maturity, And so I knew there wasn't a lot of big bucks in that area. So I was like, I set my bar right there. I was like, if I can get about a 120-inch 8-pointer this year, that'll be great. And so that's pretty much what happened. I had hunted all day. I switched stand locations midday. So, and that's one of my tactics. Like, sometimes people want to hunt all day in the rut, and I agree with that. But sometimes too, depending on how the deer movement is, it's even more effective to change tree stand locations like midday. And that's what I did in this situation. So we were hunting. It was November time, but the deer were not moving all day long. So guys, watch for that when you're in the rut. Sometimes you're expecting all day movement. You're not getting it. You're actually just getting morning and evening is the primary thing. So when that's happening, it's actually good, in my opinion, to change stand locations, because if deer are bedded anywhere in your vicinity, the wind can switch directions during the day. And if they pick up your scent, you're not going to have a deer sighting that evening, because they know you're there. So if you change locations, though, you're getting a new location, you have a better chance of not being detected. And that's what happened in this situation. I had an early morning activity of the deer, and the deer movement just stopped. So as we got into the mid-afternoon, I got down and I moved to the other end of the property, the absolute other end, pretty much. Got set up in another stand location. And actually in the last probably 20, 30 minutes of shooting, this 8-pointer came by, and he was on a mission. He was moving. He was probably going to go check scrapes. And he happened to come by me at like 10 yards, and he didn't last long after that. So yeah, that would be my little tip for everybody who's getting ready for the hunting season, especially when you're planning on all day sits for the rut. Really monitor what the deer are doing. And if they're not doing all day movement, don't be afraid to move locations, because sometimes that increases your chances of success.
I want to go back and ask you about that crab claw 10 that you first mentioned, that you look down and he's just already standing in the scrape below your tree. If anybody watches the video, I don't know if he was this big or if the GoPro helps. but his body,
That
he looks
deer
like
was
he looks like a
enormous.
bull or a cow standing there.
Oh my gosh. I honestly, Brent, I was almost in tears trying to load him up. So I have an SUV and I have one of those like cargo carriers that go into the trailer hitch. And it's only like whatever that is, like, I don't know, 2 feet off the ground, not even, whatever. I couldn't get it. I couldn't lift the deer myself to get it on the hitch. It's probably the heaviest deer I've ever managed. And I was like, I don't think I can do it, you know? And so I had I actually had a deer cart with me. I positioned the deer on the edge of the deer cart, and then I stood on the handle, and that leveraged and lifted him up closer to the cargo thing. And I was able to just, work him onto it one end and then a quick grab the other. But yes, that deer was enormous. I mean, I have never shot such a big deer in my life. And I made the mistake of not aging him. I should have looked at the teeth, but he had to at least be a 6.5-year-old. I mean, statistically speaking, they often say that 6.5 is when a buck hits his prime, his peak. And he was at least at that. I mean, he was a hog. He was just an enormous buck. And so anybody that's listening in, if you go to my Sean's Outdoor Adventures YouTube channel, I have all my hunting seasons in playlists. So if you go to the 2024 hunting season playlist, you'll see that buck in there. And yeah, that thing was a hog, man, just an absolute tank.
Before you go here, Sean, I'm sure you're excited for this upcoming season. One of your final videos from last year, I think you in the snow got your 5th urban zone doe.
Yes.
And then shortly after you pan the camera and you're like, guys, check out this 14 point looking at me. And then, it takes your breath away. This giant buck staring at you from, I don't know, look like 60 or 70 yards from you.
Yeah, so I have permission to hunt that property this year in the urban zone. I have a trail camera that I set up there a couple of weeks ago, and I've gotten 2 bucks on there so far that are worth talking about. One is this ancient, and I mean ancient 6-pointer. Like, you could tell this deer is probably almost like a 10-year-old deer. He's like enormous, but you could tell also that his body's starting to, deteriorate. And that when they get that old, when they get real old, their teeth wear out and they can't get nutrition for their rack. So you could tell he used to be enormous, but now he's just this giant 6-pointer. I wouldn't shoot him just because I'll let him live out his life. But the other buck I have on camera right now is a mainframe 10, and he's got a bunch of extra sticker points like at the base of his left side. I'd say he's probably going to score gross in the 150s maybe. I haven't seen that buck that you're referring to yet, but that was also in January. And anybody who follows deer movement, deer often do make a shift in their home territories a lot of times going into the later part of the season. So that buck could have a core territory somewhere else, and then just later in the late part of the season when snow's starting to fall, moves into a new location. But I've also laid eyes on some other big guys on that property, and the landowner is actually very excited for me to shoot some deer because he's like, I want deer out of here. So that's the ultimate property that every hunter wants. A property that's hosting some big boys here and there, and also an owner that wants them gone. So it's a win-win for me and for the landowner on that one.
Well, I'm fired up for season. I've really been shooting my bow a lot here the last month or so, and October 1st can't get here fast enough. Sean, thanks for coming on our program here on Outdoor Adventures, and good luck to you this year. We'll be following along.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. And good luck to you as well.
Appreciate it. Sean McVeigh from Sean's Outdoor Adventures. Thanks for joining us on the Brownfield podcast this week, and have a great weekend.